What's up, Lost Boys? Here we are for another fantasy football recap. This is going to be week 10, and it was a great week, so let's dive right into it. First game, remember, guys, this was rivalry week. This was the first time we've played the same opponent, so this was your week 1 opponent. Uh, First matchup we had was the brothers Grimm this week, Jace versus Josh, and this was a turd bowl, if I'm being honest. Both of these guys were awful this week. Neither of them scored 120 points. Josh ekes out the victory this week after scoring a total of 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's becoming a trend. Josh's team just doesn't score touchdowns at all. Josh Allen got 1 rushing touchdown, and Najee Harris got 1 rushing touchdown. Other than that, his team scored no touchdowns. He still managed to win because Jace only scored 103 points. It was a really rough start to the week for Jace. Justice Hill got him point 0.8. Hunter Henry got him 1. Devontae Smith in a blowout only got him 2. He had a huge chance for a monster comeback because Jalen Hurts and Amon-Ra did such a great job. Jalen Hurts is just looking like the best fantasy quarterback right now. Him and Lamar are battling every single week. They're getting close to 30 points. But it just wasn't enough. Josh, like I already mentioned, he doesn't score touchdowns. His guys did okay, but Jaden Daniels didn't do very good. Josh gets lucky to get the win this week. He really needed it because some buys are coming up for him. Next, we're going to go with Denny versus Tim. This was my matchup of the week. And it was probably the best matchup of the week, or one of the best matchups of the week. Denny takes the dub by 7, 137 to 130. His guys were just a little bit better, and this was what I was talking about last week. Denny's team, in my opinion, is the best team in the league. Tim's guys didn't have the best of matchups this week, and he needed his running backs to carry him. And unfortunately, they just couldn't do it. He's been getting monster games from A-Chain all week, or all ever since A-Chain's been playing pretty much. If he's healthy, he's getting a monster weeks, and he gets him 7. He needed to get him about 15, and he couldn't do it. So Tim didn't really get what he wanted from the Dolphins last night. Purdy did okay. Flacco did awful for Tim. And he really needed a better game from Justin Jefferson, if I'm being honest. That really cost him. They're going against Jacksonville, who's awful, and he only got him 7 points, 48 yards, his lowest receiving output of the year. That really killed Tim, cost him this week. Denny, speaking of could have cost him this week and a stud wide receiver taking a dump, was CeeDee Lamb. And this is going to be interesting. Dak's out for the year, and CeeDee Lamb was crushing it. Now, he's got Cooper Rush thrown to him, or Trey Lance. This could get ugly for CeeDee Lamb, which would be a huge blow to Denny's team. He's got Horstert here. He's got James Cook. Obviously, we know how good Denny's team is. And it was the Philly D getting him 20 points. Remember, this was only a 7-point game. Getting 20 points from your defense was the game changer. But like I said, I think the difference was Tim and his running backs and Justin Jefferson not bringing it home. Then he gets the big victory. Next game, I called this upset. I had a feeling. And Justin takes down Roman 147 to 113. Roman's been his opponents haven't been scoring any points this whole year, and Justin finally decided to flip the script on him. Burrow, 33 points on Thursday Night Football. God, almost started off to a great start for the week. Chubba Bubba Bubba continues to be Justin's best pick. 22 points again. The only guy that did good on that in that Germany game. George Kittle is pushing himself as the best tight end in the league. And who else has been the second best tight end in the league over the last few weeks? Travis Kelce. Justin also has him too. The D-Hop edition has made Kelce that much better this year. It's been helping Mahomes as well. But, Justin does good. That 33 points from Burrow was a monster start. Matt, he just didn't play well. And Matt's team is good. It's really good. It's led by Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, but Saquon's been his stud all year. And the problem with Saquon the last couple weeks is the fact that Jalen Hurts, as I mentioned, is taking all the rushing touchdowns. I mean, I think he has three rushing touchdowns the last 2 weeks. Those have been going to Saquon this season. So Saquon had a definite down week. I mentioned Dak Prescott being out for the year. That's going to hurt Matt. He does get Jordan Love back, but in general, though, we'll see. I mean, he has Russell Wilson to his back, so Matt has deep options at quarterback. Is it enough, though? Is Matt's team going to go on a little bit of a spiral? We're about to find out. Next, another brutal game for Pat. I hate to sound like a broken record, Patty. This year is just, it's got to be terrible for you, man. I mean, the Bears are taking dumps now. Caleb Williams isn't looking very good. And fantasy, you're getting stuff like starting Cooper Rush instead of Will Levis. I mean, it was a lose-lose, but unfortunately for you, you found a way to make it worse by choosing a guy that got you negative points. And Will Levis had his best game of the year with about 19 points. Now, if it makes you feel any better, it wouldn't have put you over the edge, I don't think. It would have been about a 21-point difference, and you needed 23. But, man, that's got to be killing you. I mean, Ryan's quarterbacks died this week. He had 4 and 6, but you know what Ryan did have? 50 points from Ja'Marr Chase. And Pat still made it a ball game. Like, Ryan's team, I've been saying it all year, it's not very good. He got 50 points from a guy. The rest of his guys, I mean, that game alone, Ja'Marr Chase with 50, Chase Brown with 18. He walks out of there with 68 points from 2 guys. So that's a big thing. Not to mention Brian Robinson being ruled out. He has Austin Eckler, does good to replace him. Tracy does a great job, but Ryan's quarterbacks were terrible. Pat has Lamar. It's got to be tough for Pat because he has the best player in fantasy in Lamar Jackson, and he's still in last place right now. He got McCaffrey back. He looks pretty good. Unfortunately, the rest of his team didn't, especially his quarterback. Pat loses again. I'm sorry, Patty. Rough. And then our closest game of the week. This came down to the wire last night. Cal versus Cass. 118 to 116. Another kind of turd bowl. Cass got heavy lifting from Kyler Murray this week. He got also some heavy lifting from Mark Andrews. And he got heavy lifting from his kicker. The irony there. I mean, we're talking about 8 weeks so far this year, 8 out of 10, where Cass has had a top 3 kicker. Fairbairn's been Cass's best pick this year. Sorry, Cass. It's the truth. You know, and the big difference was, and the difference in the game, Tyreek, he only got 10 points, but one of them was his touchdown. First touchdown, I think since week 1, maybe. And Cal's got to be pissed because he only lost by 2. So that touchdown was 100% the difference. You know, Cass also had Kyren Williams going in that game last night. Kyren didn't do very well. I mean, Tyreek only scored 10, so it wasn't a huge difference. But Cal just needed a little bit from Demarcus Robinson last night, and he just couldn't do it. Gets him 2 points. If he just would have started Calvin Ridley, he would have easily won the game. So Cal's got to be annoyed about that. Not to mention Xavier Worthy gets him another terrible game. I think he had like negative last week. He gets him a 1 this week. Cal's got to be thinking about benching Xavier Worthy. I mean, like I mentioned, Caleb Williams earlier, he's been bad. 6 points, 9 from C.J. Stroud. He gets Nico Collins back next week, which is huge for Cal, but he takes a rough loss when he needed a win big time. So that's our Week 10 recap. We're going to look at our standings real quick. Danny, first place, moves into first place. He's tied with Matt, but he has much more points, almost 100 more points. Matt's in second place at 7-3. Josh is at 6-4 after his tight win with Jace. Tim is at 6-4. He's in fourth place. So that's our top 4. That's been the top 4 for about 3 or 4 weeks now. Justin, it just won't go away. He's 5-5 now. He's a little low on the point side, but still 5-5. He's sitting by himself at 5-5 in 5th place. So we got the 3-5. It's a trifecta, shall we call it. Next, Cass, big win, gets to 4-6. Jace, 4-6. Titty Sucker, 4-6. Ryan, 4-6. So got this log jam, all of 4 people at 4-6. And then there's Patty at 3-7. Guys, there's only 5 games left in the regular season. 5 games left. I can't believe it's going this fast. This feels like just yesterday we were doing our draft. So it's still all up in the air. Who knows what can happen? There's some big matchups this week. Speaking of matchups this week, we're going to get right into them real quick. There's some really good matchups this week. I think what I'm going to go with is I'm going to go with Tim versus Barreto. Barreto's been beating a lot of good teams. He's been really good the last 6 weeks, taking down his opponents. And Tim really needs this victory. After losing to Denny, he's at 6-4. If Justin beats Tim, he'll tie him in record. I don't think he'll pass him in points. He might, depending on how big the game is. But we'll see. I like Tim's team better than Justin, but I've liked a lot of teams better than Justin, and I've been wrong about that. So Tim gets most of his guys back. The Niners are playing Seattle, which should be a very high-scoring game. Both guys don't really have anyone on bye week. I'm going to go with Tim this week. I think it's going to be much closer than people think. Since Justin got Puka back, Mahomes is playing Buffalo, which should be a super high-scoring game. But Burrow's going against the Chargers, which Chargers D's looked really, really well. But Tim's matchups with his running backs, they're just too juicy. Gibbs is going against Jacksonville. Pure, awesome game for him. Achane's going against the Raiders defense. Great game for him. And Mixon's going against Dallas, which we just saw Dallas D give up 9 billion points to the Eagles. So I think Tim's running backs are going to be the difference and push him to a victory over Justin. Next game we're going to go with is Josh versus the Titty Sucker. Huge game for Cal. He barely loses to Cass. Now he has to get a monster victory over Josh. I mentioned Josh's team's lack of ability to score touchdowns. Cal's definitely going to need it this week. Josh's matchups look pretty good. His projections are almost 150 points. I mentioned that KC Chiefs game. Allen should have to do good, but the Chiefs defense has been so good this year, so Allen might be short on points. Jaden Daniels gets a big game. Josh has a big game in Philadelphia. Thursday Night Football, Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin. We'll see where that goes. Cal gets Nico Collins back. CJ Stroud's been mediocre. Josh's opponents usually do pretty good, and I think this is going to be one of those instances where Cal scores a lot of points. He's been due. I think Stroud goes off against that terrible, terrible Dallas D. I think Nico Collins goes off, and I think that's what's going to give Cal the edge. It just depends on if he gets a little bit more from his other wide receivers. He does lose Marvin Harrison Jr. this week, who has been pretty decent. So we'll see. I mentioned Xavier Worthy, so he's got to make a decision on that. But Josh's matchups are really good this week. I'm going to give the edge to Josh. I think maybe he gets a couple touchdowns. When these guys played in week 2, Kamara scored 40. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do give the edge to Josh this week over Cal. Denny versus Jace. Jace, after losing this week to Josh, was on a 4-game win streak. He started 0-5 and had won 4 in a row. He did have some guys on bye this week. He's playing Denny this week. We know how good Denny is. Jace gets some guys back on bye. He gets Josh Jacobs. He gets Jaden Reed. He gets his Green Bay Packers back. And Denny's team's just really good. So this is actually going to be an awesome matchup. I think that Thursday Night Football is going to decide this matchup. I think if Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith do well, Jace has a shot. I think if they don't do well, Jace is going to lose. So I'm going to give Denny the edge in this matchup just because I think he's the best team in the league. I think he has all his guys. No one's injured, no one's on bye. So I'm going to give Denny the edge, but this game could be really close if Jalen Hurts gets a good start to the week on Thursday. Next, we got Learning Computer versus Llama. Learning Computer takes the L, and he's going against maybe our worst team. But Ryan did get the dub last week. He's sitting at 4-6, which is not bad. We're going to see, I keep mentioning that Washington-Philly game. If Brian Robinson is out again and Austin Eckler gets full duties, it's a huge boost to Ryan's team. We'll see. They were playing cautious with Brian Robinson, so he might play this week. But at the end of the day, Ryan has to get more out of his quarterbacks. Rodgers has been awful. Sam Darnold's come back down to earth. So, Matt, Russell Wilson's going against Baltimore's D. Baltimore's D has been awful. So I assume Russell Wilson's going to score a lot of points. Jordan Love's going against Chicago. That might hurt Matt because Chicago has no offense, so maybe they're just going to pound it a bunch. I don't know how I feel about this game. Barkley's going against Washington D. Washington's done an okay job stopping running backs this year, but I'm going to give the edge to Ryan this week. I think his matchups are pretty good. He has most of his guys healthy, and I just think he might pull an upset this week. Kind of the same feeling I had last week with Justin over Matt, and I'm going to give the edge to Ryan. And last but not least, well, I guess it is last but not least because it's last place Pat versus Cass. I'm sorry, Patty. It's rough. Been a terrible year for you. But he might be able to get back in the win column. He has to pick the right quarterback this week. He does lose McBride on bye. Speaking of Arizona on bye, Cass does lose Kyler Murray this week. If Tyreek Hill can get rolling against Vegas' terrible defense, then that gives Cass a really good shot. With Pat having Christian McCaffrey back, David Montgomery's going to do pretty well, more than likely. This game is a toss-up for me. I'm going to give the edge to Cass just because fantasy luck. I know that sounds weird, but Pat just has bad luck this year. So I can see Tyreek going off for 30 points. I just can't. Like, he's been awful all year, and he plays Pat, and everything seems to get right against Pat. So I think Cass wins there. I'm sorry, Patty. Next year will be better for you, I promise. So those are all the matchups, guys. We got 5 weeks left. It's an insanely close league. Technically and mathematically, everyone is still in it. Even Pat's still in it, mathematically. So no one's eliminated. Keep pumping out the best rosters you can. It's fantasy. Anything can happen. Hope you guys have a good day. Love you guys.